everybody. With that, I'm excited to introduce Brad White, our speaker today with SCP Inc. I think I got that right. And I'm anxious to hear what that stands for. So with that, we'll introduce Brad, and he's been a regular here at our coffees, which we appreciate, and now we get to hear more about what he does.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my history and how I got into computers, how I got into computer programming, computer science. When I was growing up, I graduated from high school in 1979. Computers were just kind of coming on the scene. We had a Apple or a TRS-80 in our high school. That was the extent of all the computers. And everybody told me, Brad, you got to go into computers. You got to go into computers. And I said, A, it's a fad, and B, everybody's going into computers. I don't do what everybody else is doing. And so I went to college, got into electrical engineering, and decided those guys don't really know what they're doing. They're just applying equations. So I went into physics, and I love physics. And I got hired by a physics professor to write, what would you guess?
Code.
Right. Write software. Right. So I'm writing software. Obviously, looking back, no natural talent for writing software. It was horrible. The only advantage I had is I knew more about it than my professor did. He knew nothing. So, so I got into computer science, and I realized doing physics, there's nothing you can do with physics that isn't done on computers. Everything today with physics is all done on computers. So I decided physics with a computer science minor would be a good way to go. And then I decided I needed to drop. I was paying my way through school. I dropped out of college to make some money and finish paying my way through school. And one of the problems I had with physics is the only thing you can do with physics is get a PhD. If you want to do anything with physics. And if you have a PhD, there's only a few specific locations in the United States that you can work. And that was what I wanted to do. But at the same time, God was getting a hold of my life, and I was feeling like I really want to be able to be free to move if He tells me to move someplace. And I don't see how that's going to work with a physics degree. About that time, the church that I was with sent a church plant to Lincoln, Nebraska. And so I volunteered to go on that. And so I moved up here, worked a little more, and then went back to school. And I was their charter member of their student group here on campus. And switched to computer science with a minor in physics. I love physics. But then ended up in the engineering college. So I actually have an engineering degree in computer science. Graduated, and then couldn't find a job here in Lincoln. And all my relatives were saying, you need to move down here to Kansas City. There's lots of jobs down here in Kansas City. And so I decided to kind of go out on my own and figure, well, I can't find one job. I can find a bunch of little jobs. And I don't remember how I did this, but I remember I ended up in the federal building. I don't know if I went door to door or what I did. But I don't remember that part. I just remember sitting in this room with these guys from Soil Conservation Service and a little application they wanted to write. And so they're going to hire me to do that. A week later, I got a phone call saying they had gotten a phone call from Washington, D.C., saying that somebody had gotten the contract to write all their software for them. They're out in Washington State. And so I was out. They were going to write this software. And then a week later, I got a phone call from this company out in Washington State saying, we need somebody in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you were recommended. So they hired me sight unseen over a phone call. And I worked there for 5 years, and then that contract ended, and I got a little 2-week project working for Goodyear. That project went on for about 7 years. And so I had a blast doing that. And that was engineering, again, so that was fun. Yeah, I won't go into that. So I was on my own and got little projects here and there, and then this one larger project. That ended about 2003, and I knew from all the reading that I'd done was you should spend 10 to 20% of your time out prospecting for new contracts while you're working on the ones that you have. That was extremely painful and so much more fun to just write the code. So I spent most of my time doing that and very little time prospecting. I did pick up a couple, maybe 1 or 2 contracts a year, little things, but then that contract ran out. And I knew I was in trouble when the people I was calling on said, yeah, IBM was just here. That happened about 3 times, and I knew I was in trouble. My wife thought we should sell the house and move into a tent before they foreclosed on us. So I had about 6 months to a year where I just wasn't finding anything. and so I went and got a real job. So I'm working for Automated Systems down south, and I love that job. I got promoted pretty quickly to software development manager, so I was managing the department, and so I had my own team, and it was like having your own company, except I don't have to worry about sales, and I don't have to worry about my income and budget and money and all that kind of thing. I can just work and organize my team, and it was a blast. So I did that for various companies for about 10 years, up until 2014, and now I'm back out on my own for the last 3 years, and I'll have to recommend that. So in that 10 years, I got experience with point of sale, retail, banking, engineering, website security, credit card processing, medical software, and outsourcing, onshore and offshore. So I have a wide base of experience. So I'm a lot wider skill base now than previously when I was out. Before I was just looking at programming. Now I can handle any size project. And so I'm back at my with even more confidence than before, if that's possible. I'm not sure that's possible, but it feels like I have more confidence as I'm going out and talking to people. And so with computer science, I can move any place. I really thought we were going to be in Southeast Asia a long time ago. My wife spent a year in Thailand when her dad was in the Air Force, and I've been to Malaysia a couple times, and we love Southeast Asia. We do a lot of ministry with international students here in town, and that's why we moved downtown. We can't walk out the door without falling over an international student. Down there, the park, every place you go, all the apartments around there, we're just surrounded by international students. So that's awesome. Our kids grow up with ministering to international students, having them our home, and so forth. So we love that. And so now I call myself kind of like a general contractor. So if you've ever built a house or have a friend that's built a house, one of the things you do is hire a general contractor, and then he hires the plumber and the electrician and so forth, and he knows who's going to be on time and who's going to pull proper permits and who's going to be reliable and who's not going to try and take shortcuts and that sort of thing. And I've known people that have tried to cut corners to save costs by acting as their own general contractor, and that can work. It has a lot of risks. It works really well if you know what you're doing. You've done construction before. But with IT projects, they're so much more complicated. And so there's so much more risk with an IT project. And so you really need somebody that knows what they're doing. One of the things that I found as I was doing outsourcing for these companies was that you can only expect what you inspect. So what people look at is the requirements document that you get back, and all the upfront PR stuff. That stuff is all really sharp because they don't get the contract if it isn't. But what you don't look at is the code. I had the first time I did this, the first project we had, I was meeting with them regularly, but I didn't actually look at the code. I trusted what they were saying for the first 6 months. 6 months later, I looked at the code for the first time, and it was too late. Yeah, that was a disaster. So we eventually brought that project back in-house and had to rewrite the entire thing. But, so that's the rule. You can only expect what you inspect. If you don't actually look at your code, you're going to get stuff that's not maintainable. And so you need somebody managing your project that knows how to read code. And so today I am working for a engineering firm out of Ohio. I'm working for a nonprofit, a couple of nonprofits here in town, and I'm working for I don't even know how to describe them, company up in Omaha that does this crazy stuff. But they had their database crashed recently, and so I was able to recover that for them, and we're moving their website over to the cloud. That's going to be a lot cheaper for them, and we've got a lot of integration we're going to be able to do, so there's a lot of exciting projects there. So just about any kind of project, the beautiful thing about what I do is I get this project, I get to cherry pick the parts I want to work on, and then outsource everything else. And so I get the fun part, and then delegate all the parts that are boring for me. So, so I think that's about. One last thing. If you guys are interested, I didn't give a complete life story, but if you want to hear what happened after the cop saw the blood on my face, you're welcome to take one of these. When I was in high school. Thank you.
All right, questions for Brad?
Got it. What's the funnest project you ever worked on?
Oh my. Well, the funnest class I ever had was my last physics class, 411, 811. But Engineering for Goodyear was fun, because they didn't consider me an engineer. So it was fun going back to them and saying, I think you got this equation wrong, and walking them through it, and then, yeah, you're right, Brad. That was fun. Working on website security was fun, because that's such a complicated, messy problem to solve that makes it secure but easy for people to use. What we find is in Europe, they're a lot more lenient with things that are hard to use. But in the United States, if it's hard to use, people just won't use it. We did have a cattle guy out in Wyoming that was doing $1 million worth of business through his account a month. And so he wanted more security. But pretty much everybody else is like, no, this is too hard. So trying to find that balance between ease of use and security, and be able to step it up when somebody wants more security. Like if you've ever used Authy, if you want something that's really secure, I like Authy. It's on your phone, and it gives you a code that's good for 20 seconds. And it's hard for anybody else to break into. Rich?
Well, following up on Steve's question, what does SCP stand for?
So when I started out in 1995, I called it Star City Programming, and there was no other the only other Star City thing here in town was a Star City Parade, which I did get some calls for in December, and then there was a Star City Auto Salvage or something like that, and I was the only technical Star City. Now, today, there's like 20 Star City this and Star City that and so forth. But my problem is that I'm no longer just programming, and I'm trying to get beyond just Lincoln, so Star City doesn't make any sense. And people in Omaha, when you say Star City, they don't even know what you're talking about. At least they didn't 10 years ago. It might be different now. But so SCP is a little shorter to say. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, so as a follow-up, first of all, I think you're occupying a space that is really cool, because you're addressing a need that companies need help, but they don't have the opportunity to bring on a full-time IT guy or person to come in and help them navigate through what honestly is incredibly intimidating for those who don't know. Talk about your consultancy, and if somebody was to hire you, what they could count on, and what differentiates you from, and I guess makes it special.
Sure. So, first thing is I don't charge unless I do something. So if I'm coming in and doing a review or looking at something or reviewing a project plan, or if you're planning on outsourcing something, you know, review the requirements documents or something like that, I can review those and give you suggestions for free. I only charge if you have me rewrite it or something like that, then there will be a small charge for that. I'm trying to have Vaughn come up and work with this company up in Omaha, and I'm going to sit in on that, but since I'm not actually doing anything, I'm not going to charge for that. So those kinds of things. Second thing is I was back in 1991, I read in an Inc. magazine, this guy said that it was a bicycle shop up in Massachusetts where he was giving lifetime warranties. And so he would get people to come back with these broken up bikes, and they bought from him, and he would fix them up for free. And what he found was that they bought more stuff because they came into his shop than it cost him to fix the bike. And so he was ahead by giving a lifetime warranty. And so I can't give a lifetime warranty, but I give a 6-month warranty on any bugs. If I write software and there's a bug in it, then I'll fix that for 6 months. And so the point is that if there's an issue, I want them to let me know. And so I want them to be happy and satisfied, and having me come back in, that's just an opportunity to get back into the company. And then the next thing I do is, my rule is, you pay what you think it's worth. So I've lost track, I think twice now, had people take me up on this. But if I send out an invoice and you think, well, we didn't get any value out of that, well then don't pay me for it. Now, it's my responsibility for it to be valuable to you. It's not your responsibility. So it should be on me to, the work that I do is valuable to you. Darren.
So to expand on that 6-month warranty that you have, what do you find is the more common approach to software shops when they write code? Is it pretty much the 5-second guarantee, or what are other shops doing more commonly in the space right now?
Mostly you pay for their time. So if you find a bug and they go back and spend time fixing it, you pay for that time. So yeah, it's all on you as a customer and none on them. You have no idea what their capabilities are, and yet you take all the risk. That doesn't make any sense to me. I know what my capabilities are. Why should I expect you to take the risk? I should be taking the risk.
How do you market?
Not very well.
And he's honest.
All my marketing is done through LinkedIn. So I've got a number of posts that I wrote this year that I think you would enjoy reading. They were kind of fun, enjoyable little stories, but they kind of give you a flavor of what I do. And one of those links to my warranty. I don't call it a warranty because that means something else, but in my mind, it's a warranty. If that bothers you, I apologize. Tracy?
Brad, you've had like a lot of experience both managing teams, which is really challenging, and running your own business. Which was for you more of a growth experience?
Growth experience. That wasn't what I expected you to ask.
Okay, which one did you enjoy more? Maybe
that's where I thought you were going. I feel like I enjoy every job I've ever had. I feel like I'm engaged. I feel like I get in and work at it, and I enjoy the challenge. My wife says that I'm much more energized when I come home now than I am when I'm working for somebody else. I don't know. I don't see that. I don't know why that is, but that's her perspective, which is probably more accurate. So from that perspective, I really enjoy being out on my own. I love what I do. Just about every day going home, I'm thinking, man, people are paying me for this. I love this. Steve?
You read more and more about how the economy is moving more toward a freelance economy where people won't be employed by an employer, but they'll be doing freelance work for a lot of different people. And even now, a lot of startups employ 1099 freelancers rather than paying and creating employees. For others that might be contemplating a similar move like you've done, you know, what advice would you have to them if they're going to be freelancing? Kind of is it accurate to call what you do freelancing?
Yeah.
What advice would you have for others that are contemplating that sort of career? Because I think it is coming true. I think we're seeing more and more and more of that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to get a loan. You have to have a couple of years of 1040 income tax statements showing that you've got a steady income, which destroys me. What else?
Do you have a hard time with marketing and finding the next gig, or?
Yeah, most people are good at whatever it is they do, and they think they can take that and make a business out of it. But that isn't really true. You've got to be able to do that, and you've got to be able to sell. So I would say get out on the street and sell something. I was talking to a friend of mine. One of my sons is thinking about going into sales, and I said, I know how to train programmers. I know how to train all these different kinds of people. But what would you recommend any classes you take? If you wanted to be a salesman, what would you do? And he said, go out and sell. Get a job at a kiosk in the mall and just sell all day and see if you enjoy it. And I just absolutely hate that. It would just drive me nuts, and that's what I'm doing. So.
Outsource that, Brad?
I'm trying to, yeah. It's looking harder. I thought for a while I was going to be able to do that, but I'm getting more skeptical about that plan now.
I have another question. We've worked with a lot of businesses that have various needs as far as software. For a small business that's getting to the point where maybe an Excel spreadsheet doesn't cut it for them for whatever, how do you know whether you should go with an off-the-shelf app or program you can then maybe adapt to what you're doing versus a custom programming job to build something just for their issue? You know, and let me use CRM software as an example. You know, there's tons of CRM systems that you can purchase and then hopefully adapt to what you're doing. Or does it make more sense to program your own solution? Do you have any guidelines for people?
Oh, yeah.
Something with that?
Yeah, if you can use off-the-shelf software to do that, that's always better. Except that it doesn't always fit your needs. So that's where the question comes, is that do you need something customized? And so the question is, how much pain is there in using the, because in some cases, it's okay. The way you're doing it is fine, the way they're doing it is fine, but if you use their software, you probably better do it their way, because trying to fit your way into their software, it's going to be painful. If it's important to you, if that's some sort of competitive advantage for you to do it that way, then there's advantage to doing something custom. But it depends on how much pain point there is there. And that was the challenge when I was on my own, is you've got to find some project that's a big enough pain point that they want custom software. They can't just use something off the shelf, but small enough that I could do it by myself. And that's kind of a narrow range of projects. And I was running into bigger projects, I was running into smaller things. I was having a hard time finding those ones in between. Now, where I can handle any size project, that isn't such a problem anymore.
And then another more nerd question. How many different programming languages do you need to know to effectively do what you do? I mean, there's dozens of them.
Right. There's, there's well over 2,000 programming languages.
Wow.
Most of them are not general purpose programming languages. So the more common ones that you hear about, Java and so forth, C# and so forth, those are general purpose programming languages, meaning you can do anything with them. It means they're not specially designed to do any one thing. So if you want a specific task, then you use a specific language. Statistics, you use R, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of specially tailored languages that are really good for that one specific thing. And then there's, it depends. If you want to do just what's called a greenfield project, where you're starting from scratch and you can do anything, any language you want, then you only need one language. But if you're doing contracting like I am, then it's better to know multiple languages, because they already have software sometimes that they need you to come in and add features to. And so if you know that language, it's obviously going to be easier to do.
Any other questions?
Darren.
So what is your, other than
your third line, John,
the sales marketing piece, what is your biggest challenge today in your business?
I don't know if there is another one. That is my main challenge. So I'm doing two things. One is I'm networking with people, and I feel like that's going really well. And the second thing I'm doing is cold calling. I read a really interesting article, you guys might appreciate this, just recently, that said cold calling isn't dead, you just don't have the guts to do it. And his point was, if you've got two guys, and one guy is just relying on networking and marketing and waiting for the phone calls to come into him, and the other guy's doing that same thing and also doing cold calls, the second guy's going to be more successful. And so I'm trying to figure out how to be that second guy. I'm not that yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I'm curious, with the advancement of technology and advancement of software, how do you keep up to date on the latest developments? Are you going to training meetings or just reading articles on the internet? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, interestingly, kind of in a backwards sort of way, that's why I'm out on my own. As a development manager, the people just coming out of school have a lot more familiarity with the newer technology things, and so people that have been working for 20 years in the same job using 20-year-old technology, that's a bigger step for them sometimes. There's a huge advantage to having just experience and knowing how to tackle problems, how to think about problems. From an engineering perspective, one of the advantages I found, because I said, remember early on, I didn't have any natural talent for this programming thing. What I did find is that I have a natural talent for being persistent and for being curious, and the more it doesn't work, the more I want to figure it out. And so I'm just tenacious with figuring things out. And the second thing is, as an engineer, I have a natural talent for taking things apart and seeing all the individual pieces, as opposed to letting them, well, for most of the people that I've hired, that's a real challenge. That things all get, well, this would affect that. Well, yeah, but it's going to vary independently, and they have a hard time seeing that. So experience is huge, but experience with new technology is also huge. So one of the things I was finding was there's a lot of discrimination against people my age in hiring for programming jobs. There's a lot more demand for people who know the new technology. So it's on you as a developer. It's your responsibility to do your day job and also keep up with technology. And if you're just satisfied with what you're doing, you're going to run into trouble 10, 20 years down the road. It doesn't work. It's not like sales. It's not like any other industry. It's very, very fast-paced. And what was the cutting edge a year ago is now old school, and it's the wrong way to do it. It's just you can't sleep on your laurel. You can't wait. You got to stay on top of things, and it's on you to do that.
Any other?
My question was answered.
Oh,
The biggest challenge.
biggest challenge. Okay. Well, follow-up
Question?
Yeah, kind of a different question. So I'm hearing a lot about, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and I'm just curious, as entrepreneurs, as we open and run our business, if you think that is a wise way to accept payments is through cryptocurrency.
Well, there's a small topic. So would you accept it as a currency? Well, sure, absolutely. I would take it at today's rate. If you don't like it, transfer it to something else. That's not hard. It gives you a competitive advantage over something that doesn't. If there's somebody who wants to pay in cryptocurrency, there's not a lot of people right now that are paying in cryptocurrency, though. It was at the beginning, people were buying pizzas and so forth like that. But because it's so much more of an investment vehicle right now, people are using it more for store of value than for purchasing things. I think it'll come back. I think go ahead and set up for that. Secondly, you've got Bitcoin, which is the kind of the poster child, but it was the original cryptocurrency. There's a lot of other cryptocurrencies out there now that are a lot more effective at what Bitcoin is trying to do. So I think in the long run, Bitcoin is going to drop and the other one's going to overtake it. So as far as investment, I wouldn't invest in Bitcoin right now. I'd be investing in Ethereum or something like that. Ripple is looking really interesting as far as transfer of value across country lines and that sort of thing. And then that's just the coins. The big thing is not the Bitcoin itself, it's the blockchain. The blockchain is what's really going to change the world in the next 20 years.
There is an event down at Fuse tonight on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Keith Rohr with Payment Spring is going to be talking more about that if you have more questions.
Then Fuse is having a block-a-thon.
March or in May, I think. April.
It's in April 12th through the 14th, I believe. It's a competition, so you can enter.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you want to know more about Bitcoin or blockchain, feel free to ask. It's a fun topic.
Any other questions for Brad? If not, Brad, thank you so much for being
Okay.
here, and I want to give you a Focus Suite mug as a
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please feel free to hang around as long as you like. No need to run off. Exchange business cards. Meet at least one new person before you leave is my challenge to you. But thank you for being here, and we hope you'll join us next week for Echo Bell.
Thank you.
And feel free to pick up one of my stories if you want to hear the rest of what happened.